Greetings from Jerusalem, Jane. I'm standing here literally taken by surprise. 10 minutes after 4 o'clock this afternoon, the Shabbat horn was sounding here in Israel or in Jerusalem, and it is now officially Shabbat. I had not remembered that we moved the clock, so now it's officially Shabbat. So this is not going to be a long update that I normally would have done. But also because something happened today, my whole schedule for today was changed. The hose in my kitchen with the sink broke, so all of a sudden there was just water running everywhere. And I was like, oh, it's going to be Shabbat. I'm not going to be able to have water in my kitchen until, next week. So I told my landlord, and he says, we'll be there in 3 hours. So that's a 45-minute drive away, my landlord. So he arrived with a guy I haven't seen before. So he says, Jane, this is my other son-in-law. And he says, Jane, how are you doing? And we were going up in the elevator, and I said, well, how are you doing? And he said, my other son-in-law is drafted in the army, and he's right now out in Judea and Samaria, but my son is in Gaza. And I said, what? What? And he says, my son is at war in Gaza. And I teared up. I don't know what happened. I just teared up. And I said, I don't even know what to say of the atrocities that took place here. 24 soldiers has been killed. I think that was the last number that came out. One of these soldiers was in the reserve, and he was actually on his way home to his family. He was I think he was around 30 years old. He was the father of 3 small children. And on his way from the army to his home in Samaria, he was gunned down. He was in his car, and a Palestinian Arab terrorist drove by, and they shot into his car, and his car flipped over, and they killed him. They just executed him. Father of 3 small children, murdered for no other reason than just being Jewish. About a year and a half ago, a terrorist also in Samaria had a big rock, and he was throwing it at an Israeli vehicle in order for that vehicle to crash. And then he tried to rip open the door to get in and murder the people in that car. But this specific young soldier who was just killed in a terror attack a year and a half ago, he neutralized another terrorist in a terror attack. I have lived here for so many years. I have reported about so many terror attacks of Jewish people being murdered for no other reason than being Jewish. Stabbed, ramming, shooting, the list just goes on and on and on. All of these children who don't have a parents because they have been murdered in terror attacks. Rockets flying in from Gaza. Also this week, the Israeli Security Agency arrested a terrorist who was planning an imminent big attack here around in Jerusalem. It happens all the time, all the time. Anthony Blinken is here. He just met with the Prime Minister. He met with the President. And what Israel always has to hear from him and from other leaders coming in is, you need to show to take considerations for the innocent civilians in Gaza. You really have to be careful not to hit them. So the president says to Anthony Blinken, this is what we gave them. This is what we throw down in Gaza. And we says, this is where we're going to come. This is where we're going to operate, evacuate, get out. They were sending millions of text messages to people inside Gaza. They were calling people, and they're saying, you're in an area where we are going to come, evacuate, move out. Who does that? Israel has always done the best that I can to avoid innocent civilians as casualties. The Israeli military's leader was out saying, we are at war with Hamas. We are not at war with the civilians inside the Gaza. But who are many of these civilians? Many of them, they support Hamas. They are married to family members of Hamas. And don't you forget for a second that when they breached the fence going into Israel, we saw again, because they filmed it, many civilians who breached also into Israel. And some of the people who were kidnapped by people in civilian clothes They also came in, they looted, they stole from the houses, and they put it all in to the Gaza Strip. Some of these hostages, they are saying now in the media, are held by some of these innocent civilians in Gaza. They support terrorism, they're carrying out terrorism. Every time there's a terror attack in Israel, they are celebrating, they are handing out sweets. Whenever Hamas fire rockets into Israel, they are celebrating. But when it comes to them, oh, they are all of a sudden all of the innocent civilians. Did you know that on a regular basis, thousands of people living inside the Gaza Strip every day, they come into Israel and they work in Israel, Judea and Samaria, in the border communities around the Gaza Strip. They come into Israel, they come into the Jewish people's houses, they work in restaurants and hotels because they make a lot more money here, and then they bring it home to their family in the Gaza Strip. Did you know that every week cancer patients and people who are really sick inside the Gaza Strip, where do they go for treatment? In Israel. Hamas leaders, where do they go for treatment when they have been sick? In Israel. Because Israel is actually treating their enemies, the people who hate them, the people who is calling for the annihilation of them. So we have had, unfortunately, a large number of casualties. I think the number is 24 now of soldiers who has been killed defending Israel inside the Gaza Strip. Right now, the number of people held hostage in Gaza is 241. Can you even comprehend that? Parents who are sitting saying, my child is held captive in Gaza. I don't know what's happened to them. Are they eating? Are they sleeping? Are they alone? Where is the pressure from the world? Where is the pressure from all of the governments around the world? There are many, many foreign nationals who is held captive. Where is the pressure on the Red Cross? Where is the pressure of Hamas on Hamas? And in the meantime, Israel is constantly being pushed and pressured for a ceasefire. A ceasefire? Are you serious? There could be about 40,000 Hamas terrorists hiding like the coward they are underneath the Gaza Strip. There's a whole city under the surface inside Gaza where they have built these tunnel networks. That's where they are right now. That's why they want all the gas and the fuels, the diesels, so they can keep the pump going, because they are underground. In order for them to breathe. So what is Israel doing? They are allowing, I don't know, humanitarian aid, not from Israel. That thing is closed, but humanitarian aid is coming in from Egypt, and people are also starting to go out of Gaza into Egypt. If all of these Arab countries were so concerned about their Palestinian brothers, are they opening their borders? Is there any Arab Muslim country who have said, you know what, we need to take them out so they are protected? Come to us and be safe. And then Israel can go in and deal with Hamas. Did you see anyone saying that? Did you see anyone condemning what Hamas did? No, you don't. They are supporting it. They are supporting the slaughter of Israel, of the Jewish people. And what do you see in your cities around the world? You see, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. You see hundreds and thousands of people in the streets calling for genocide towards the Jewish people. You don't hear one single person in Israel or around the world of the Arabs saying, you know what, we need a two-state solution. Of course, Israel, they need to be here, and then there needs to be a Palestinian state. No. They're calling for the annihilation of the Jewish people. It doesn't matter if you're talking about Fatah, which is Abu Mazen, who's supposed to be Israel's peace partner, or if you're talking about Hamas. They're all talking about, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which means we need to eradicate the Jewish people. So Israel has no other choice but to finish Hamas once and for all. It's going to be a long and a bloody war. Like I said, we have already have more than 20 soldiers, 20 sons of Israel who's being buried. We are still not done identifying the bodies of more than 1,400 people who was brutally murdered on October 7. Why? Because they are so mutilated they can't recognize them, or they are burnt to a pile of ashes. You can't identify it. There are still people who, they don't know where is my loved one, they are missing. The horrors, the stories are still coming out of the brutal executions, of the mutilations, the rapes that you can't even fathom. And yet Anthony Blinken he's here now and he's standing on TV saying we need a two-state solution. Nobody's calling for a two-state solution. Are you not listening? Are you not opening your eyes? Who are you going to go to and say, okay, Israel wants a two-state solution, if that's what Israel says? But who is the other side? There's no one to talk to because there's nobody who wants a two-state solution. And this is Israel's land. God gave this to the Jewish people in an internal covenant. Internal mean internal. God doesn't change his mind. This land belongs to the Jewish people. So many funerals. Every single family in this country is affected. People who lost someone who was murdered on October 7, they don't have time to grieve because they are in the army now defending Israel. So for such a time as this, we will stand with Israel. We will speak for Israel. Like I said, rockets are still flying in, more than 8,000 rockets since October 7. 1,400 people murdered, 5,000 injured. More than 240 hostages held inside the Gaza Strip. Israel is informing the civilians, we are coming, this is where we are going to bomb. Move, move, move. Who does that? And Israel has this genocidal terror Nazi regimes who is right now hiding as the tunnel rats they are, and people are calling for a ceasefire so they can continue to be alive and attack Israel again. Are you serious? No other country would put up with that. Why should Israel? It's ridiculous. So there you have it, just a little bit speaking from my heart. But when I'm standing with my little elderly landlord and he just looks at me and he says, my son is in Gaza right now. We don't have any contact. We don't know anything. It's just unimaginable. This is God's holy land. For such a time as this, we stand with Israel. We pray for Israel. We encourage Israel. Like I just said, we just had another terror attack. Father of 3 children who was a reserve in the army. And he got a break. He was allowed to go home. On the way home to his 3 little children, he was brutally murdered by a Palestinian terrorist. And yet people are pushing for a ceasefire, or people are pushing for a two-state solution, that Israel should give up land for a nation, give up land that God gave to them, that is theirs in an eternal covenant. No, no, no. So thank you for standing with Israel for such a time as this. I am gonna take a little break. The dog was barking also in Lebanon. Nasrallah was speaking, but it's lies, it's propaganda, it's incitements against Israel. And you better believe the Israeli military, and especially the Air Force, every single pilot is ready in case they're gonna start attacking Israel. So Israel is on high alert on the northern border, on the southern border, and also in Judea and Samaria. So we need your prayers also for this Shabbat. May God bless and protect all the men and women in uniform who's out. Instead of being home with their families for this Shabbat, they have to be out protecting this country that is surrounded by enemies. Bye.